Hey, what is up guys? GuitarRock here, welcome back to another Nikke Goddess of Victory video. And if you guys are not aware, today we are having more milestone rewards. Make sure you guys claim it. Alright, this is just for free. You basically just log into the game and you are able to claim the free tickets, 7 ordinary recruit vouchers and 3 advanced recruit vouchers. And the free pulls are still going on, so hopefully you guys are constantly trying to get both characters, Cinderella and Grave. So let's talk a little bit more about Grave. I've had about 3 to 4 days now to test her, and I have changed my impressions about Grave a little bit, I guess. So let's talk a little bit more about it in this particular video, give you guys a much more thorough guide. So on day 1, when I pulled for Grave, obviously I was testing her with weaker gears. So now I've overloaded her gears, gotten better everything. You can see, fully overloaded gears. My skills are still at 777, but I think that's going to be sufficient enough for me to test her to almost her full potential. Now, if you guys haven't seen my day 1 impressions video on Grave, I would like to reiterate that during the initial impressions when she was first released, I felt like she's definitely a little bit underwhelming. I had very high expectations of her to be able to perhaps compete with Crown in some area of department, right? So, however, you know, the big issue comes with Grave is going to be in the team composition that you can build with her. So let me explain what I'm talking about, right? So this is going to be the example. You can see I basically made some screenshots, you know, comparing like Crown team with Grave team. Obviously, you know, burst 2, and who is going to be better in a team. Now, obviously, the difference between Grave and Crown, they are both the burst 2 character, and the damage, alright, which is this particular number right here. So with Grave, this team did about 1.6 billion, and with Crown, this team did about 1.6 billion as well. So you can see, damage wise, this is going to be kind of similar, right? So why am I upset with that? The underlying issue with Grave doesn't come with just this number alone, right? So Crown provides more than just the damage. Now, not only can Crown be used to increase defense, Crown can also taunt the enemy, as you can see, right? Right here on her skill 2. She will be able to taunt the enemy, and she has invulnerability for a few seconds. So this combines with a burst skill that gives shield, basically secures the survivability part of your team. So if you have Crown in a lot of situations, you pretty much can get away with no healer. Alright, you don't really need heal as much, so that's going to be where the difference lies in. When it comes to the survivability of the team, those things cannot be measured in these numbers right here. These numbers are going to reflect the damage numbers that your characters can do. When you build a team, it all comes down to everything else that comes along with the character. Now, obviously, there's going to be 2 factors to be considered here, right? Number 1, if you're a veteran player. Number 2, you're somewhat like new player to like mid-game player, right? So I'm going to talk more about the end-game player first. Obviously, if you're an end-game, should you pull Grave? I would say yeah, get 1 copy, right? Obviously, because if you're playing like something like solo raids or union raids, you definitely most likely will be able to build Grave in your 2nd or 3rd team, or maybe 4th or 5th team, depending, right? So I'm going to show you guys more results later on. I definitely did compare Grave with a lot of few others, but if you are a new player, this is where it comes in, right? Building a team with Grave in a few other areas where you want to push contents in is going to be extremely struggling, right? Let's talk about the burst 2 in itself. Usually, if you are building a team, you have a CDR on burst 1. Alright, CDR is going to be the most crucial thing. What CDR is cooldown reduction. Alright, for example, Lita right here, you can see this is tied to the first skill. Rouge has that as well. And then we have D Killer Wife. We also have Dorothy and those characters. For burst 2, you usually have healers to basically help with survivability. And then you have burst 3 as your damage dealer, right? Now, this is going to be one of the better campaign team. If you're trying to push in hard campaign, this is going to be able to carry you. We have Lita, Crown, Red Hood, Modernia, and Naga, right? Now with Grave, now you're taking away the burst 2, potentially your healer or your shielder slot. Alright, so burst 1, you still ideally want CDR. We don't have a cooldown reduction character that can heal as of now yet. Maybe if that happens in the future, I can see the slot for Grave, but because Grave takes the slot 2, which is usually like the healer or the CDR character in case you use burst 1 that doesn't have CDR, right? Because Grave is like somewhat of a damage dealer of her own, that makes team building a little bit more I wouldn't say impossible, but it's trickier, right? So you either slot in another burst 3 healer, alright, you can maybe use something like Helm, or you use something like burst 1 Rapunzel. Alright, Rapunzel is going to be a very good one if you need survivability. But trust me, I've tested this particular team compared to the Crown team. If you're trying to push hard campaign, it's not even close, alright? So you can see, I'm going to show you guys, in a lot of these hard campaign situation, without any form of survivability and with just damage, especially when you're trying to push high deficit content in the game, where your CP is way lower than the enemy's one, you can see like Grave doesn't really provide much. Now look at the amount of damage that I've received so far. That's insane. I don't even know what happened. And I was barely like, I don't think my power level difference with the enemy is that high as well, right? So one more thing to consider for newer players as well, right? Is Grave might be much more expensive to build comparatively. So if you think about it, because she's a burst 2 that can also do a little bit of DPS, that means she has higher requirements than most other burst 2. Alright, with Crown, maybe you can get away with not having her gears overload. But I feel like with Grave, if you are a new player, you might not be able to push your potential that far because you don't get her overload gears, therefore your damage is going to be a bit lacking and stuff, right? By the way, I don't know what happened right there, but we just absolutely get demolished right there. This particular team doesn't really perform well in this particular stage because the enemy has that shield. Then you gotta use machine gun characters. So again, you're gonna start encountering issues like that. Now in a lot of contents of the game, obviously, like if you try to do simulation overclock as well, it's not even close, alright? So Crown literally destroys this particular mode. When I try to use Grave, even in the first stage, I couldn't even pass the first stage. I have to try to manual it. So which is kind of insane actually to think about the difference between those two, which definitely can be super underwhelming, right? I was hoping that Grave would perform more. If you're a new player right now and you started recently during the 2nd anniversary, should you invest in Grave, right? Because like, sure, you can use her in Pilgrim Tower, right? She's going to be able to help you there. If you don't have Burst 2 Crown, I get it, alright? Grave can help you in Pilgrim Tower. She can perhaps be your Burst 2 temporarily for now. Now, I did a little bit of comparison right here so you guys can hopefully see between Grave and a few others. So, with Grave versus Tia and Naga. So the idea here is I put Tia and Naga in the first team, alright? So we have the entire synergy for this particular duo twins right here. Scarlet Black Shadow Alice right here, and of course with Lita at the bottom, right? So Lita, this one I put Grave, and of course I put Rapunzel right here. I slot out because I'm taking Tia and Naga. Naga can heal and Tia can taunt and basically gives help with survivability for the team. So putting Rapunzel here, I feel like it's fair. Tia and Naga team definitely did better than the Grave team. Now I am aware that some of you guys might argue that okay, Scarlet Black Shadow is going to do better with Tia and Naga than Grave. Makes sense, right? Because she doesn't have Pierce. That's fair, but surprisingly Alice did about the same right here, right? Alice did about the same. So there's also that thing to consider. It's quite telling that Grave can almost compete with Tia and Naga, which I think it's a very good thing, right? She is actually not too bad, alright? In the Scarlet Black Shadow to Alice team, while she doesn't buff Scarlet Black Shadow or she doesn't buff Alice as much, her damage could carry the overall damage potential to as high as the Tia and Naga team. So I think that's pretty cool. So you get to see that thing right there. So in the second team right here, you can see I try to put compare Grave with Blanc and Noah. Alright, so in a somewhat machine gun team, so you can see the damage difference right here. Grave definitely improved the team a little bit, right? So we got Lita, we got Blanc, Noah, and then we got Modernia and Ludmilla Winter. So Ludmilla Winter, you can see her damage between Blanc and Noah and Grave. It's about the same boost, right? And then with this one, Modernia, she did about the same as well. So this team, this is a machine gun team. Grave doesn't really fully benefit, right? Because Grave, she shines in like a burst gauge scenario where characters can feel burst gauge faster. Rocket launcher, sniper rifle. In a machine gun team, she doesn't really shine right here. But still, she performs better than both Blanc and Noah together. So something to consider, right? So with that, I feel like we can easily say that Grave is still at a solid maybe second, maybe third place, right? depending on where you look at it. Now, when it comes to situation for end game, right, for solo raids, for union raids, the part where whether Grave will be good or not, it depends on the boss. Alright, with solo raids and union raids, different bosses are going to have different mechanics that's designed surrounding the boss. Now, if the boss is going to start doing AoE attacks and the boss is going to start doing damage to you, Grave might not shine as much, or it's much more difficult to slot in Grave in there. And if you need like some sort of survivability, some sort of heal, you just need to have a healer that's not burst 2, right? Because you ideally don't put them together when Grave is there in the team. So with that being said, the best candidate that ideally if you're trying to pair with Grave is going to be Helm right here. And I hope if you guys pull for Grave, if you have her, they are both going to be an awesome candidate, right? So Grave on burst 2, she's going to help with the damage, and Helm doesn't do much damage for a burst 3, so hopefully that sort of like balances it out, and Helm is there to help with the healing. Alright, she's going to be able to make you heal off your attack damage if you need some sort of survivability for the team. One more character, of course, is also Rapunzel. Rapunzel is one of the few characters that she heals and does not need to burst. Now, I actually like her a lot. This is going to be the default Rapunzel, not the one that you get for free right now in the second anniversary. Her skill 1 is going to be where you are able to constantly heal your character. As long as she's attacking with a full charge, she will be able to basically heal 3 ally units with the lowest HP percentage. I actually like it a lot because she doesn't need her burst skill, but if you need to, she also has her burst skill for backup. In case somebody dies, she will have the ability to resurrect them. Very, very strong character to pair with Grave if you ever need that backup healer for the tougher stages. Last but not least, another character that you can also use as a substitute healer is going to be Bunny Alice. She has a very strong skill overall if you need to slot in, but usually she fits better in a shotgun team. But if you need to, she's not too bad as an option. Alright, she also has an ability to fill up the burst gauge right here. Alright, so very, very cool. You can combo her with Grave to basically fill the burst gauge even more. One thing to note though for new players is like this girl, Bunny Alice, is a 40 seconds cooldown character. So you're gonna need to have to bring one more burst 1 character. So make sure you guys are aware of that. So that's gonna be something to consider if you're teaming it up with Grave. Now, assuming you're fighting a boss that's weak against fire element, alright, this is going to be perhaps Grave's best team. Alright, she's gonna be able to buff Alice, Asuka right here, and then Modernia is going to be there without burst, but you can put burst 1 can be Lita or D Killer Wife. Alright, doesn't really matter, but I think Lita is still going to be overall the better one. Now obviously this team, like I mentioned, if the boss is not going to be able to hurt you much, or depending on the boss mechanics, if you are not required to have a healer, this is probably going to be the one that gives you the most damage. Alright, because Grave is so good, you can fill the burst gauge extremely fast. Alice can just spam the shots. You have to manual Alice though, so make sure you guys are aware of that. So for the cube, you can either go with Bastion or you can go with the hit rate cube, depending on which one you want. I prefer Bastion personally. You don't need to go with Resilience because Resilience right here is not going to help much because her reload ratio is already reduced by 50%. Seems counterintuitive, it's better for her to basically get the damage when she's shooting the enemy, so hit rate or Bastion is going to make more sense. Now skill priority, usually I would highly recommend the burst skill because this is going to be the best one. This is going to give her the most boost, it's going to boost her ally the most, so obviously the burst skill should be the number 1 priority. Now obviously after the burst skill, you want skill 1 to be the one to go to because this one gives you burst gauge filling speed. Skill 2 seems to be the least important. Sure, it's going to give her a little bit more damage, but you probably can get away with not going all the way to 10, right? So you can go like 10, 7, 10. I think that should be enough if you care about solo rates and stuff. Now let's talk about overload gears. Now this is going to be very interesting, right? Obviously, with a lot of DPS damage dealers, you want to go for the elemental damage bonus. That's going to be what's making the most sense for characters like her. However, she is going to be a burst 2 supporter. She's not going to be a main DPS, but rather like an off DPS on her own. So depending on which kind of team you want to go with, I feel like attack percent might be better because if you swap her out in multiple various teams and she's going to be just there to support as a burst 2 supporter, then you probably don't really need the elemental damage. But regardless, if you want the maximum damage from her, probably elemental damage still, but that will only work if the enemy is weak against your element, right? So always keep that in mind. And also one thing to consider, Grave has the ability to give herself extremely high critical rate right here. You can see it's almost 75% at level 7. I think it goes to like 80 something percent at level 10. So critical damage is going to help her a little bit, right? If you have almost 100% crit rate, I feel like attack percent, critical damage, elemental damage dealt, that's going to be more than enough. That's going to be what you need. Right now, I think she's either in 2nd place or 3rd place. After Crown, I feel like getting 1 copy for her will be able to provide you plenty of mileage in the future usage. And hopefully, you know, when in the future they release more Pierce type characters, perhaps Grave is going to shine again. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this particular video. Subscribe if you guys haven't already. Give this video a like and let me know if you guys have tested for Grave. Do you guys think she is worth it? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.